Hey everyone, and welcome to Already Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Star Trek The Next Generation Season 2, Episode 3. It's called Elementary Dear Data. So, full spoilers for the episode as always. No points for guessing what sort of episode this is going to be. If you're suspecting Holodeck, if you're suspecting Sherlock Holmes data, then you would be absolutely
You're in
correct. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's funny. For the first half of this episode, I actually didn't think we were going to see most of the cast because you don't see Picard until like 2/3 into the episode.
I checked the time when he showed up because I was like, they're actually bothering. 28 minutes out of the 45.
Yeah, I think I was pretty on point there then. Two
Yeah,
thirds.
you were. Yeah.
No, because there's like one small moment we see. I was going to say Frakes there, Riker and Worf on the bridge when there's like a power surge and you see like Worf reacting to it. But other than that, all you see for the first 28 minutes is Data, Geordi, and Pulaski. That's the only main characters you see for the first chunk. So I thought we weren't going to see the other characters, but then things got very serious and Picard had to get involved. I was like, okay, all right.
Yeah.
Still an easy episode for Stewart, though. I feel like he got like a couple of days rest while they were shooting the first
still
episode.
a healthy paycheck, I'm sure.
Yeah. Basically, they've got a few days before they're meeting up with this other ship. They're just sort of sitting around in space. They've got some downtime, and Geordi decides to give Data something of a present by going with him to the holodeck and dress up. He's going to be Watson, Sherlock, or Data will get to be Sherlock, and they'll solve a Sherlock Holmes mystery together. Because Geordi's finished his big model ship that he's going to give to the captain of this other ship because
it's because they're both called the Victory.
Both called the Victory, yes. And he used to serve with the captain, and he wanted to give him a present. First thing I noticed actually in this episode that I want to mention is so Data comes down to the engineering deck, and he sees Geordi's like second in command down there. This female officer, who, he asks, where's LeVar? He said, it was urgent, to come down here and see him. He's like, and she's like, oh, he's over there with Victory, and now she knows she's talking about a model, right? But she gives him this like kind of knowing smirk as she says, "Oh, I think he's over there." I'm like, all right. I don't know if this is the actress going for it a little bit too much, but I swear she wants to have sex with Data. This was a flirtatious exchange.
Haven't we established that everyone wants to?
We established that one person wanted to for sure.
Well, yes, yeah,
and in fact did.
And did, yes.
I don't know. It was just a bit too overly enthusiastic and kind of cheeky, but yeah. So they go into the holodeck, and they're in Sherlock Holmes, flat, and Data's playing the violin, and he's acknowledging all the artifacts that are around the room that came from all these different cases, and eventually the chief of police comes over with the client, and Data solves the mystery within seconds. And Geordi points out that this isn't solving the mystery, this is merely you memorizing every single Sherlock Holmes story and you took all the fun out of it. So Geordi, I think this moment of the episode was kind of weird. Geordi just kind of like leaves in a huff, and then Data goes to follow him, and they end up in the bar. And then Geordi kind of admits that he's not really that upset, he sucked the fun out of it. And I feel like the storming out of the holodeck, that part of it only exists so they can run into Pulaski so that she can get roped into the next part.
Possibly, yeah.
It didn't feel like he actually was that hurt by it that he wanted to storm out.
He just gets up and leaves, and I'm like, what's the problem here? It didn't feel like a big thing had just happened. And it hadn't. And it hadn't,
no. And the way he talks about it in the next scene, Geordi himself, it doesn't sound like a big thing did happen. So it feels like he only just leaves the holodeck and wants to go away just so they can run into Pulaski, because that kind of sets up the next part. Because Pulaski's listening to them as Geordi's trying to explain how he sucked the fun out of it. The mystery and not knowing and trying to put it together is what makes it fun. And Pulaski, who, this is now the third episode in a row where she
is a dick. To Data, specifically.
Well, yeah, but I mean, why do you always have to boil it down to the most stupid, inane way possible?
No, because she kind of is.
I'm not saying she's not a dick,
repeatedly.
but I'm trying to be more specific. I was going to specifically say she's being technophobic or racist or whatever. Like every time
Yeah,
she's
we could
spoken
get
to him,
into that.
every time she's spoken to him in the last like 2 episodes and in this episode, she always has to like point out that he's an android and that he can't understand things in the way they do. And she kind of laughs it off in a very kind of like patronizing way. Oh, Jordy, you're wasting your time. He'll never understand how the appeal of a mystery. He can never figure out an actual mystery and deduce things. He's nothing but memory and data. Yeah, no pun intended. You shouldn't actually say that. I was just paraphrasing, but
that was just you. Yeah.
And he tries to stick up for him, and he's blah blah blah. And ultimately, it becomes this thing where she says, "No, he can't ever figure out a mystery on his own. He only knows things because he's memorized all the book. That's what he does. He just memorizes things and numbers and data and blah blah blah." And Jordy comes up with the idea of like, well, what if we could ask the computer to create a Sherlock Holmes-like mystery, but not one that was actually written, and challenge data that way and see if he can actually figure it out. And they ask her.
The first attempt still doesn't go too well on that, because they go in and it's just a couple of different Sherlock Holmes stories mashed together.
Well, yeah, but first of all, they
solves that really easily.
But first of all, they ask her to come with. They actually say, "Hey, Pulaski, you got to come." And she's like, "Oh, I wouldn't miss it." So she gets dressed up as well. And before we even get to the stuff, like because she's never been a holodeck before, they kind of explain a little bit more again.
It's hey, here's your new season refresher.
Pretty much. Talk about how there's technically a wall there. I think we mentioned last season how like they're kind of like the program all basically makes them always turn so that they're never actually like they can't walk in a straight line for too long or they'll hit a wall. So like even though it doesn't really seem like that way to us because it just looks like they're walking down a street because they are just walking down a street. But
just technology, just go with it.
Yeah, there is some bullshit explanation in there as to why they never hit a wall.
I'm willing to just go with it for the sake of it working because otherwise we'll just be nitpicking every single time.
Well, no, happens. I'm not complaining. I'm just like. If anything, it's almost worse when they make a point of actually trying to explain it. Just
they didn't mention that this time though, did they?
Well, no, but they mentioned like I mean, you could theoretically touch the wall. But you have to touch it to know it's there. They kind of went into it.
They did that part, yeah. They never mentioned the way it kind of turns you to walk. They just left that with what we had from last season. So yeah, it's fine. It didn't go as in depth as before, I don't think. Just enough to refresh people, or enough that anyone who just happened to jump in at season 2 got the grasp.
Yeah, so they're presented with a mystery, and Data solves it pretty quickly. But Pulaski's complaint is that it's not really solving anything. It's just because the computers just combine 2 different stories together. So it's like this isn't really solved or proving anything with Data. Like not happy. And this is where Jordy makes a bit of a mistake. Jordy, calls out the computer to talk to it, and his exact wording here, and obviously this comes up later in the episode when they're realizing what he's done and why the computer's done with it.
But as soon as he does it, you're like, oh, god damn it.
Yes, his phrasing is not a good idea. He says to the computer, create an opponent that is capable of defeating Data. And as soon as he said that, I was like, yeah, that's not backfiring. I mean,
as soon as he did that, it's like, oh, he just supercharges the shit out of Moriarty. Because that's where it's going.
Well, this is the point where it cuts to Worf on the bridge, and he's like, oh, there was a weird power surge there to the holodeck. Like, the ship basically diverted all of its power to the holodeck to do whatever it was doing in that moment. And then it went back to normal. It was like, oh, well, it's back to normal now. No, I guess no worries. False alarm. Back to your business.
Has it ever been a false alarm when that's happened?
There should be an episode at some point where it is a false alarm, just for the sake of it. Just for the sake of proving that it possibly can just be a false alarm. It doesn't always mean something.
Like it's like the equivalent of like, oh, your engine light in your car's come on. Very well could mean your engine's screwed. Could just be a dodgy bulb. It could be a problem with the light. But you never get that here. Whenever there's power's all diverted to that room, I'm sure it's fine. It's always just the dodgy bulb.
Well, it's TV, right? And everything has to mean something, which is why you don't get that. But yeah, sure enough, Moriarty's kind of like watching, and he sees them use the computer, and essentially what happens with them is that And what we learn over the course of the episode as he kidnaps Pulaski and ultimately kind of talks to Data, and he unlike the other holograms in the holodeck, he sees them talking to the computer, understands to an extent what they're doing. When I say understand, all I really mean is he witnesses it, and then he heard them how they call it, and he's like, Arc, come up, and it comes up for him, because I thought it wasn't going to, because I then debated, well, why would it come up for him? Like, why would the holograms even have the ability to raise the computer like this?
That's kind of the point.
Yeah, because what we learned throughout the rest of the episode is that to create an opponent that could actually defeat Data, it had to actually be someone that would be able to have access to the ship's logs to learn about what's going on and have consciousness and be aware of what he is, because Data is aware of what he is. Therefore, a straight hologram couldn't defeat Data. So sure enough, Pulaski gets kidnapped. The safety guards that stop the holograms from hurting them are dropped. And
because of course.
And so they eventually see Moriarty, and he's like, he calls them Data. He brings up the computer, and I think what surprised me here at this point in the episode about the plot is that Data and Geordi actually leave the holodeck. I assumed they were going to be trapped inside and have to figure it out or something like that. Instead, they actually go, "Oh shit, we better go tell the captain what's going on."
This is above our pay grade.
Yeah, we better go tell the captain what's going on. And this is actually when we first see Picard, as they go to the ready room, and there's a big meeting with all the main cast, and they're like, "Okay, what's going on?" And they explain the situation. That's Moriarty having so much power, being self-aware, having access to the computer, and they ask the computer.
He's done a drawing of the Enterprise.
Yeah, he understands what the Enterprise is. But they ask the computer, "Oh, who authorized this transfer of power to this character?" And the computer's like, "Oh, Geordi LaForge." And he's like, "What?"
And he's like, "Oh shit, yeah, may have made a bad call there."
Yeah, so he explains what he did when he kind of realizes it himself. And Picard's like, "Well, I better go in and try and sort this out. And I'll get dressed up, because the less he sees of our uniforms and understanding more about us, the better."
Any excuse to get in a costume.
We have some of Moriarty and Pulaski, who seems to be quite a happy kidnapped victim, to be honest.
She's got tea and crumpets. What's not to be happy about?
Yeah, I mean crumpets kind of suck, but other than that.
Whoa! You take that back.
Crumpets kind of suck. Tea's overrated. I said it.
We're done here. What's the point carrying on?
Sorry, just the facts. So ultimately, though, when Picard comes to see him, and they have a run-in with a mugger to kind of prove that, maybe they can get hurt. That's kind of the point of that scene. That there are some real stakes in here. I guess I will give the episode credit, though, because we joke, even though we've not seen that many of them yet, that Next Generation's got a reputation for having a lot of holodeck gone awry episodes. But to this episode's credit, it's not the holodeck that messes up. It just takes what Geordi says very literally and does something that he commanded to.
Yeah.
So at least in this case, I can't actually say the holodeck broke down or malfunctioned.
No, it didn't. And what was really interesting for me is Moriarty didn't actually have any interest in hurting Pulaski. Not really. Maybe at first, but by the end it was like, no, he's evolved beyond that.
Moriarty's whole thing is just that he's realized that he's alive and he wants to survive. He wants to continue living. And when Picard
they know that he can't leave the room or he'll just cease to be.
Oh, of course, but Picard and Data, when they get to him and they try and talk to him, and he explains this, he just wants to keep living. I want what any living creature does. I want to keep existing. And Data, as a computer, he's not real, in the same way that, everyone else is, but he gets to live. Can I not get to do that as well? And I don't want to be erased, essentially. It's a fight for survival. It almost gets sympathetic. And
yeah, he's pulling out, I think therefore I am, as all this philosophy of, well, hang on, am I not as real as Data? And right now you're saying there's no way for me to exist outside this room, but what if there was?
Yeah, well, it doesn't actually get to that point until later on in the scene, though. The whole idea of him realizing that he can't leave this room, because they spend a lot of the scene explaining how he's created and what he is exactly. Yeah. But ultimately, his thing is that he is just a new life form, kind of realizing what he is. The fact that he's meant to be this character from Sherlock Holmes almost goes away the more he realizes that he's a thing. The more he becomes self-aware of what he is, the less of Moriarty.
Yeah.
It just kind of fades away. And ultimately, Picard says to him that he's like we have no real intention of erasing you, and there's no way of taking you outside here. But like what we can do is we can save everything that's here. We can save your existence, and then maybe one day, when we have the technology to take the energy that's created inside the holodeck and give it some sort of body, maybe we can. And he agrees
Pretty
to this
respectfully as well. Like, they're not being funny about this. There's no trick. It's genuine. Of like, no. Okay, right now we can't. It's kind of like, we'll put you in cryo sleep until we figure out a way to save you.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, and Moriarty doesn't even put up that much of a fight after this. Once he gets this answer and he can tell it's honest, he kind of willingly says, well, in that case, that's what we'll do. And he actually hands back over control of the computer. He gives them authorization. Says, no, control can turn to main computer and the captain and blah blah blah. And that's kind of the end of the story. Barring Picard coming to see Geordi and making sure that he's not beating himself up too much and that he's not like in trouble for accidentally creating a supervillain. This episode didn't go the way I thought it was going to go. Like, I really thought there were, like, because ultimately, I think because they were emphasizing Data solving a mystery so much that I thought that it was going to do something with that, and I don't know if it really did. I don't know if that there ever was like a mystery that Data solved. I mean, outside of arguably realizing that Moriarty's become self-aware.
Which is pretty big in itself.
Yeah, but I don't necessarily think that presented itself as a mystery. Like, it wasn't that long before he was just admitting things and talking about computers and starships in front of them that it became very evident what had happened with them. To some extent. So, if I'm going to fault the episode, it's maybe a failing of like I kind of expected Data in some way to prove that he could deduce things in a way that
I think
humans could.
Data deduces that this is above his pay grade. He's like, no. This is no longer just me solving a mystery and having fun. This is to the captain we go. It's that level of self-awareness that this is beyond that now. Which I kind of like.
Okay, that seems like it's stretching the meaning of it though. A little bit.
Sure, little bit, yeah.
It's stretching the meaning of it. You kind of want him to prove Pulaski wrong, and he never really gets a chance to or does. She doesn't like learn anything about Data through this episode.
Not
directly,
but I actually think she does in her conversation with Moriarty when when she's having this conversation with him and realizing that he's more than just a computer construct. I think by the end of that she's kind of like, okay, well, if he can be more, maybe Data is more as well.
Well, we'll see if she's still
she's probably still terrible, yeah.
What she's like with him next episode, but no. But it is kind of a fun episode, though, and it did kind of go in surprising ways. Like, not that Trek's known for always leading to a fight or anything like that, but like, I don't think I expected just Picard going in and kind of accepting that he has a life form now and that they will do something to help him when they can. But it played very differently, and I guess it's more traditional Trek. I mean, this is exactly the sort of thing when people complain about the J.J. Abrams, let's just make everything action Trek, is this kind of thing that they're missing, where it's actually solved in more diplomatic and understanding ways than just let's have a space fight kind of thing. So
pretty much, yeah.
So in that level, it's actually quite an interesting episode, and
I think it's one of my favorite episodes so far, for sure.
Yeah. I don't think it's perfect. I do think it has a couple of little quirks about it and things that it kind of leaves on the table. Mainly, like, I my biggest complaint, if I have one, and I don't think this is a big deal necessarily, but it's the idea that the first half of the episode is so steeped in doing a Sherlock Holmes style thing that ultimately the back half, like everything I like about the back half, has nothing to do with the fact that it has anything to do with Sherlock Holmes or whatever. It just happens to be the setting they're in by the time you get to the second half of the episode.
That's fair.
Like, I almost wish that in the scene with Picard, Data, and Moriarty, that big last scene where he kind of realizes everything, if Data is actually the one who deduces something that kind of, it almost it becomes his Sherlock moment in a way.
No, I get that.
Where thematically it keeps what the episode started with to complete it and make it feel a bit more full circle.
No, I get that. I think for me though, I really enjoyed the first half in just the fun referencing, Data having fun with it. Kind of that was all really just enjoyable to watch, as the Sherlock Data stuff was last season. So it was a nice continuation of that. And then, like I say, it went in this completely different direction to what I expected, and it didn't feel like it cheapened anything. It felt it felt really like a really interesting direction where it went into, rather than just because there have been some episodes of Trek where you feel like there's all this potential, and then it just goes and does something completely different that just feels boring and just is like, oh, okay, well, that'll do now. This still felt like it was built on the first half, even though the Sherlock Holmes stuff kind of went away. It was still built on the plot of the first half with the Moriarty character. So it did feel more connected than some other Trek episodes that have veered away halfway through. It was still enjoyable all the way through as well. That helps.
Yeah, no, it was a really solid episode. I'm critiquing it where I can because I don't want to just say, oh, it's better than most of the ones we've had, so therefore it just gets an automatic pass.
No, it's not an automatic pass by any means, but I think it's worth acknowledging that it is better than most of the ones we've had.
No, it is. It is one of the better episodes we've had, so that's good. That's good. So that is Elementary, Dear Data. Does it bug you? I'm sure I said this last week when I saw the title, but it really should be Elementary, My Dear Data. No,
It should be, yeah.
yeah.
But I mean, that wasn't anything that was in the books anyway. It was just like from the adaptations. So I can forgive it tweaking it again.
It's still the phrase that people know it by.
I know. Can't argue with it.
Yeah. All right. So next time, episode 4 is called the Outrageous Okana. No, Okona. Yeah, Okona. What do you think about that there? The Enterprise rescues the captain of a broken-down freighter, only to become involved in a dispute between feuding worlds, each demanding custody of their guest. Data seeks help from Gwynnon in understanding humor. Oh, that should be a laugh a riot subplot.
Yes. The first main plot feels very familiar for Trek already. I'm sure we've seen 2 or 3 episodes like that already between the first season and original series. It's a very familiar premise to me.
Yeah, so it could be good, could be bad. It's hard to kind of tell just from that on its own, but we will see. But of course, let us know what you thought of the episode in the comments below. If you want to support the show and everything we do here, you can do that over at Patreon, patreon.com/MailFuzzTV, where you can support us for as little as $1 per month, and you get some bonus stuff and some exclusive stuff. You get these Trek reviews a week early, so you can go over there and have a look at that and see if whatever tickles your fancy. You can support us in other ways though as well, such as liking, subscribing, reviewing the audio podcast version on your Apple Podcasts or whatever podcast app you use. So you can go do that. Get us on the Twitters at mail_fuzz for channel updates, and of course check out other content that we have, such as our classic Twilight Zone reviews that I do with Tara, or we have Screams After Midnight, which is a horror movie podcast. Me and Tim do a lot of new and old stuff on there. And of course, when new Star Trek shows show up, much like Picard, which is on its way, we'll be doing that as well. So look out for all that stuff. But that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching Star Trek, guys. And to everyone but Connor, live long and prosper.